Guts is undeniably one of the most influential figures in fiction. Through pain and struggle, you think of Guts, the symbolization and epitomization of living with guilt and sacrifice. It's precisely because of this sacrificial aspect to his very nature that creates his identity as the one who derives purpose from the very experiences of his life, as opposed to his own fleeting goals. Now, visualize as such the characters that reside within this desolate and unforgiving world called Berserk, and you have a man called Guts, shaped by his circumstances, a man who enforces and approaches with a distinguished, undeviating demeanor. Why, you may ask? Well, this video will be delving into the very intricacies and crevices which fundamentally shape and instill Guts' character with his well-known identity and philosophical ideologies within the series of Berserk. To first start dissecting the nature of Guts, we have to understand and comprehend his situational and emotional states. Guts was never destined to achieve greatness. In fact, the only reasons for his existence was to be another pair of legs, a man stripped of his ideals and dishonored from the very start of his life. It is this unfairness, this unequal footing that conceives the very character he is, and formulates a sort of relatability as he proceeds through one struggle over another. Guts consciously accepts his reality through his attained knowledge of the world and that he can only make such a difference, and soon beginning to find enjoyment and purpose from the minute details of his pitiful existence, instead of relying on fleeting goals or optimism. It is only when Guts reaches this revelation that he truly derives an insight and significant perception of the inner mechanisms, considering his own experiences and self-informed beliefs. Through these very beliefs, he materializes this weird self-exertion of conviction, not needing to understand or bring a justified or unjustified solution to things, but rather simply go based off instinctual knowledge, and it is for this very reason that Guts truly transcends the boundaries and mold of what an average character would be considered as. He isn't concerned with forcibly making a difference, but by listening to what he truly can understand. Instead of putting his faith into a fruitless endeavor, this leads into his emotional and spiritual compatibility. Guts truly comprehends the state of his own existence, and that he will inevitably have a demise in which he will truly become fulfilled after reaching. But until then, Guts communicates and transfers emotions by fighting and using his sword. Although simple in nature, this action adopts a more sophisticated role in terms of Guts' own philosophical profoundness, which imposes some sort of truth, an undeniable reality for him which he acknowledges. Guts' emotional and illogical nature are ingrained into his very conceptual confines of his own existence, which is why we see Guts committing acts of indecency or heresy in one scene, and then selflessly lowering his confidence and pride to devote or sacrifice for others in another. It is this invariability and tendency to deal with things despite the pain, despite knowing the outcome, despite anticipating an unfavorable ending, that Guts knows and integrates as a part of his life. I mean, it would seem irregular if Guts was to not encounter some sort of adversity in any facet of his life, instead of not. The seemingly coincidental nature of Guts encountering fate, even resisting the grasps of his own destiny, that makes him a person that defies the very bounds of his life, which makes his character attached to this self-actualized, self-accountable nature, giving him this will to exist by his own bounds and indiscriminate of any other shackles that hold him back from true liberation. The truth he knows is the universal truth, which he enforces on anyone who decides to disagree. So what we understand from Guts is that he is honest towards his intentions. Even when faced with impossibility, he would rather accept demise than having to surrender his freedom of thought and direction in life. Rather than move indirectionally, he follows the violence and scorn of the world, which by doing so, he interacts and communicates his ideas with so many aspiring and novel characters, which really develops and makes Guts a truly empathetic person. Guts isn't out to enforce his ideals on those who aren't accepting of him, but rather learn from these anomalies, as he has yet to understand this acceptance himself. From being an outcast to fostering belongings, Guts began to evolve and gain transformative insight on different and new concepts, which is how he continued to progress throughout Berserk. Through his many life or death battles he learned, through his long arduous journeys he learned, and through the people he met, he learned. But what could have initiated such an unfathomably profound change within himself? Well, it was a result of one man, Griffith, the antithesis of Guts' reality. Griffith was goal-orientated, serving the purpose to create an ideal world of peace, but with the caveat of devoting himself to the cause, becoming less human, with a god complex, and in time saw those he once held great commendation for as mere pawns to the greater cause. Guts, being a more conscious individual, opposed these ideals, and so began the great dynamic between these philosophically charged characters, which ultimately resulted in Guts losing the ones he cared about through the traumatic eclipse, the summit of the gods that dictated destiny. Guts, after experiencing this, changed into a more reserved individual, not by choice but by circumstance, as he was essentially forced by the Mark to be exposed to eternal suffering, which he had already been going through, but was made more bearable by the people who cared and wanted to understand him. But as we said earlier, Guts learned and came to realization through his reconstitutive change that the world is suffering, but suffering towards a truth he could grasp in his journeys, friends, and battles. Continuing on from the development of Guts, he is one of the most respectively badass characters ever made, truly being the epitome of a immorally driven but conceptually right characters. From the way he enforces to the mannerisms, styles, and uncanny attitude which gives him this consistent allure we all have towards him. Guts will be forever memorized as a character and the embodiment of sacrifice, dedication, philosophical change, and most of all his perspicaciousness on life, and what it means to live with your own bad decisions. Guts redefined the meaning of what a protagonist should be. Instead of complaining, lacking depth, or personality, he solves every one of these problems, but goes further and beyond in terms of what is capable or even thinkable for a fictional character, compelling others to try replicate such perfection. So this is why, if not, Guts is one of the greatest protagonists ever made. Hey guys, made it to the end of the video. Thank you, and just show your support, just leave a like and a sub, and as always, leave suggestions in the comment below, and yeah, peace!